Imagine you're in an amotivated state. You're just not feeling motivated. You're procrastinating. You may think, okay, the thing to do here is something. I'll clean the house. I'll take care of some bills. I'll do something. Or I'll just wait. Those approaches, as we talked about before, generally don't work, or at least don't work quickly, or they lead you right up to the deadline, and that's the deadline that forces you to get something done, or you just don't get it done and you don't succeed in your goal. That happens a lot as well. However, if you were to take that state of being unmotivated or procrastinating and actually do something that's harder than being in that amotivated state, in other words, doing something that's more effortful, even painful. When I say more painful, I do not mean doing any kind of tissue damaging or psychologically damaging behavior or anything of that sort that's going to render you injured or not well, even in the short term. That's not what I'm referring to, okay? Let's just get that one out of the way. What I'm referring to is the fact that, for instance, if you're feeling amotivated, but you find yourself cleaning the house as a way to procrastinate, you could say, well, cleaning the house is harder than sitting down and doing nothing. But actually, in that moment or in those moments, that's not the case, or else you wouldn't be doing it. The reality is that the dopamine system works according to what feels hard or easy in the moment. In other words, if you're feeling amotivated, you need to do something and put yourself into a state that's harder than the state you're in. So for instance, if you're sitting around feeling amotivated, or you find yourself tending to tasks that are irrelevant to the goal that you really should be focused on, you need to put your body and mind into a state of discomfort quickly. And the way to do that is to either engage in some tangential activity, meaning an activity not related to your goal that puts your body into a very different state. So here again, I'll default to the obvious one, which is something like cold shower or cold immersion, which not only increases dopamine long-term, or over several hours rather, but for most people is experienced as pain. That pain causes a rebound out of that dopamine trough faster than it would occur if you had just stayed in that amotivated state and waited for it to go away, or done something like cleaning up that for whatever reason felt like it required less friction. When I say friction, I mean limbic friction. Your limbic system is always in this dialogue with your forebrain. And limbic friction goes two ways. Limbic friction can be you're tired and you don't want to do something, and so you have to, quote unquote, motivate to do it, energize yourself to do it. Or limbic friction can be that you're nervous and scared and anxious to do something, and you have to calm yourself in order to lean forward into action in order to do that thing despite the anxiety. I realize this can be a little bit confusing as a concept, so I want to go into a bit more detail. Let's imagine that you or somebody else does not like to exercise. You don't want to exercise, and you're trying to get your minimum of 5 days per week exercise, and you're just not motivated to do it. There are a couple of different techniques to doing this. Assuming you've taken care of all the baseline stuff, all the foundational stuff we talked about earlier, and you're just not getting in gear, and you find yourself, checking your phone, or maybe you're tending to some tasks. Obviously, those things are quote unquote easier for you, meaning they cause less limbic friction than engaging in exercise. The typical advice would be just exercise for 1 minute, okay? Just get 1 minute of exercise, or 5 minutes, and then use the successful completion of that 1 or 5 minutes as a milestone that allows you to then move to the next milestone. And indeed, that approach can work, and it's exactly what I'm describing here when I say that you're in a state of lack of motivation or procrastination or both, and you need to put yourself into a more painful, not less painful state. So what do? You push up against that friction and you exercise for a short while, and then that pops you out of that trough. That's possible, but for a lot of people, even that won't be possible because they just can't get motivated, or they do that 1 minute or 5 minutes and they're just like, okay, I'm still in the trough. I'm not actually feeling that great. In those circumstances, it makes sense to do something that's tangential to the whole path that you're trying to pursue, this goal that you're trying to pursue. That is, believe it or not, much worse than just being amotivated. And when I say worse, I don't mean picking some task that normally you don't like to do, but now you're willing to do. I mean, literally thinking about what would be worse than being in this state. Again, without causing yourself tissue or psychological damage. What would be worse? Well, cold water would be worse for many people, very cold water. So the key is to figure out something that for lack of a better way to put it, really sucks, and yet is safe. And by doing that, you steepen the trough, you steepen the slope of the trough, which we know brings you back to your baseline level of dopamine more quickly. Now, for some people, that will be deliberate cold exposure through cold shower, ice bath. And I have to tell you that if you're cringing as I say this, well, then there you go. You now have a tool that you know you cringe even when you just think about, and therefore represents a great tool for you. So if I'm procrastinating to do something I really need to do, should I just simply wait for that procrastination to evaporate? No. Will it eventually evaporate? Maybe. Will a deadline eventually surface that will trigger me into an anxious or activated state that will allow me to complete what needs to be done? Maybe. Hopefully. But better would be to get out of that amotivated state, that state of procrastination, quickly.
You see, I always thought procrastination had to do with the thing I was procrastinating around, right? Like that procrastination has something to do with work. Believe it or not, procrastination has nothing to do with your work. Procrastination is a form of stress relief. Let me explain this. So let's say that you've got some stuff going on in your life, and heck, who doesn't have stuff going on in your life? Maybe you're fighting with your significant other. Maybe mom's or dad's health is failing and it's really, really upsetting you. Maybe you've got some financial stuff. You put too much of your savings into Bitcoin, and now that that's crashed, you're stressed out about it, right? And so you go into work, and when you get into work, you got stuff to do, you kind of walk in and you got this big stress ball that subconsciously is hanging over your head. And so you walk in and you sit down, and you know you got 13 phone calls you need to make. And you also know that you've been chickening out, you've been making easy calls, and there's a bunch of CIOs or other people that are higher level that you haven't been calling. And so as you sit down to do it, and you got the stress on your shoulders, your brain it starts to go, wait a minute, well, you want me to make a call to somebody that I'm scared to make? Absolutely not. I'm so stressed out about, can we just watch some cat videos for a minute? And next thing you know, an hour's gone by. And then, of course, what do? You beat yourself up. So the only way that you can break this habit, and that's an important word for you to hear, you're not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastinating. Big difference. Because if it's a habit, I can teach you to use science to break it. You see, all habits have three parts. There's a trigger, and in the case of procrastination, the trigger's always stress. Then there's a pattern you repeat, and in the case of procrastination, it is to avoid doing something. And then there's a reward. You get a little stress relief. The only way to break a habit, you guys, is not to deal with the triggers. You're never gonna get rid of the stress in your life. But you can 100% change your pattern of avoiding work. So next time that you're in a situation where you feel yourself hesitate, you spent way too much time checking out the highlights from last night's scores, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go, oh, I must be stressed out about something. Acknowledge the stress. Then go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I want you to count to yourself because I want you to interrupt the habit that's stored here, and I want you to awaken your prefrontal cortex. Then I want you to just work. Just for 5 minutes. The reason why I want you to only work for 5 minutes is because your problem isn't working. It's the habit of avoiding. I just need you to start. And here's the other cool thing. We know based on research that if we can get you to start, 80% of you are going to keep going.
I think one of the most common problems that people have is not that they don't know what to do to dramatically move their life forward in a substantial way. Like, you know exactly what you need to do right now. There's probably something that you've been avoiding like the plague, but the problem is not that you don't know what that is. The problem is that you just can't bring yourself to do it. And that's the common theme every single day, is that when you sit down to do this thing, you feel a feeling. And it almost seems unfair how potent this feeling of resistance is, because it's usually only present when you think about doing things that are genuinely good for you. So it's like, what's the deal with that? Why does it seem like life is set up up that way? Wouldn't it be better if you just actually enjoyed doing difficult things? Wouldn't it be better if you actually had the motivation to be creative or to write a paper or to do your taxes? Like, you probably want nothing more than to be someone who genuinely enjoys and looks forward to doing the things that are good for you, doing the things that empower you. Recently, I've been thinking, there is one strategy that I have that works every single time. It always makes me do the thing that I need to do. It's not very flattering. It's not very sexy. We don't want to believe that this is the answer. And I feel like there's so much self-improvement advice out there that kind of ignores this fundamental, not even tactic, it's almost a fact of life. So if you need to do one particular thing, then if you do this, you will do it. Like, you will have no choice. The solution is boredom. Ironically, that's also the problem. The solution and the problem are the same thing. You don't want to do that work because it's so boring to your brain. All of these distractions that you have around sound so much more entertaining than doing that thing. So you always have a back door. Why in hell would you write an essay when you could be checking Instagram, when you could be watching YouTube videos like this one? But the key realization is that your brain doesn't see objective entertainment values. It's always relative. A good analogy for this is when you're spending all day outside in the sun, it's a super bright day, and then you walk into a dim room or a store. That indoor space feels super dark. You're like, oh man, I can't see anything. What is this? And then you see that weird, like, fake sun in your periphery that starts to fade. Everything looks like weird and purpley. And in a very similar way, if you've been asleep for a couple hours and you have to get up and go to the bathroom, you turn the lights on and it's just blinding. It's not that that bathroom is any more bright than it was before you went to bed when you were brushing your teeth. It's just that your brain interprets things using contrasts. It uses comparison. So the key is to utterly delete the back doors. The key is to strip away every single option, to sit in a blank room with nothing in it, no phone, nothing. Eliminate your ability to do anything other than the thing that you need to do, and you will do it. If you are put in an empty room with nothing to do except one thing, unless that thing is like chop off your hand, you're probably gonna do that thing. And while you're doing that thing will feel so much more entertaining than doing nothing. So you have to ask yourself, what are you constructing your life around? How are you structuring things? Are the things that you're supposed to do entertaining in comparison to the things that you use as distractions? Because the larger the disparity, the more agonizing that thing will be. And you'll find very quickly that if you delete distractions as an option, it works right away. It's insane. This isn't like some dopamine detox that you gotta do over weeks and months and years, although that will help you get used to finding the entertainment value in difficult things. This is something that works right away because your brain needs to survive. It hates feeling bored, so it will make whatever your only option is as entertaining as it needs to.